So I have no.
Hello, everybody out there. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me, ladies? Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Awesome, awesome. Well, welcome tonight. Tonight we have an amazing show for you all. Please, take your time to share this information with your daughters, your mentees, anybody that you see that is a young lady, not so young lady, just all the ladies throughout the world, because you're going to have some great information from some beautiful queens out here talking about what they do. Tonight, our show is titled Women's Entrepreneurship, Women in Business, celebrating Women's History Month. And I have three amazing queens. I'm about to get into their bios in a second, and then we're just going to get into our show, into our conversation. Once again, my name is Damon Warren, and I'm the host of Peace, Please Educate All Children Equally, and our show, Education for Liberation Friday. It takes place once a month throughout the entire year. First, we're going to start off with Edmond Educational Enterprises, founded by Jacqueline Edmond, a proven leader in literacy, early childhood education, and professional development for educators. As president and founder of the Edmond Educational Enterprises, LLC, her commitment to children, youth, and educational excellence is genuine. She has been an educator for 30 years and has extensive experience in building solid partnerships with teachers, principals, superintendents, and other key public, private, charter, and school district personnel on data research and analysis, making data-driven institutional decisions, and the use of developmentally appropriate research-based, improving best practices for general education, special education, and English language learners. Now, her bio is about this long, so rather than get into the entire bio, I'm gonna start with that right there and welcome her tonight. You're on mute. How you doing?
Thank you. I was like,
awesome.
Yeah, just bring that
down. Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. I could go all night with that bio right there.
Yeah, right.
Next, we have Dr. Letitia Forrester Scott. She is the owner of Fusion Fit and Well, which focuses on health and wellness coaching. She is also a full-time college professor at Rutgers University in the Department of Kinesiology and Health. Courses she has taught over the range of health, fitness, sports sociology, exercise and sports psychology, gender issues in sport, and motor learning. She has published work in academic journals and presented her work nationally with regard to African Americans and women in sport, racial and athletic identity, childhood obesity, health disparities, and multicultural issues in health, sport, and physical education. As an experienced fitness trainer for over 30 years, Dr. Scott regularly contributes to community programs which focuses on health education, disease prevention, and life skill development. She is a certified personal trainer with the National Academy of Sports Medicine, Zumba, and multiple certifications that have contributed to her knowledge in working with special populations. Good evening, Dr. Scott.
Hi, everyone. How are you?
And I call her Coach Scott because we have a history from back in the day when she was my academic coach. That's not on there. That's not on your bio, but it should be on there. I'm putting it out there. Formerly the academic coach at Martin Luther King High School back in the early 2000s. Shout out to all those players out there that are watching tonight from
What's up, Cougars?
Right, Cougar Pride. That's right. They're all grown men now, and they're grown men. They got kids playing games and so on and so forth. So shout out to all those young men. Last but not least, we have Erica Bantam Martin, owner and president of E. Bantam Martin Insurance Agency Incorporated. Erica N. Bantam Martin is a native of Philadelphia, PA, has almost 30 years of experience in the insurance and financial services field. She graduated from West Chester University in 1991 with a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration. While a student at West Chester University, Erica pledged Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated and had the pleasure of chartering Rho Alpha chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated at West Chester University. After 5 successful years in corporate America, Erica took a new growth opportunity and became a State Farm agent. She built her business from the ground floor and now provides insurance and financial services to over 2,000 households in the Philadelphia area, me included. While building her business, she received an MBA in Human Resources from Temple University. She currently manages a professional team of 3 and has received numerous awards, including the company's Ambassador Travel Club, Brown's Tablet, Silver Scroll, and Legion of Honor programs, and has also been recognized as the Philadelphia Agency Field Office Agent of the Year. Good evening, Erica.
Good evening.
So, your backgrounds are just amazing and stellar. I mean, as women in general, but women of color, right? Beyond the bios, let's talk about that, beyond the bios, right? Talk about how that makes you feel. What do you think that you need to do, you know, as being a woman of color specifically in your field, beyond your bio? Anybody can take that first.
I'll go first. For me, it's about empowerment, particularly when it comes to women and women of color. Everything that I've done is all somehow related to kinesiology. So whether it's my teaching as a college professor or what I do in my business, it's all related to human performance. And at the end of the day, for me, it's about empowering women and empowering them to believe in themselves and to really recognize the strength of who they are from a spiritual standpoint as well as a physical standpoint. I think a lot of times women don't give themselves enough credit for the things that they do. I think a lot of times, we're taught to compromise and sacrifice so much, and that we never really learn to put ourselves first. And when we do, then it's considered being selfish, or in some contexts, if we are being leaders, if we are being persistent, or demonstrating our intelligence and not being afraid to step out, then it's like, particularly if you're a Black female, then you're intimidating, or you're aggressive. So I want to, for me, it's about really getting women to really tap into what is it that makes you unique? What is it that's your superpower? What is it that's your gift that you have that someone else may not have, but you have it and you can share it and you can be that light to other people. And it doesn't matter what the title is. It doesn't matter, what degrees you have or whatever. Ultimately, what matters is the standard you set for yourself and the way in which you allow others to grow into themselves and the way in which you encourage that to happen. So for me, it's really about just moving that forward and hopefully teaching people to get comfortable with who they are, recognizing what the strengths are, and then forging that path, whatever that may be. For all of us, it's something different.
Nice. So, anyone else beyond the bio as a Black woman, a woman of color, please?
I think for me, it's also about the girls that come behind us. I have a 17, or she's 16, she'll be 17 next month, year-old at home with me. And my constant struggle is to help her prevent some of the pitfalls that I went through, the shortcomings, the not thinking I was good enough. For me, a lot of it was fear. And showing her, I can remember even as early as 8th grade, not running for a class office because I was afraid that I wouldn't win. And so I gave up a lot of opportunities just out of fear of being afraid that I wouldn't succeed. And so a lot of what I do now is trying to help the girls that are coming behind me not fall into those pitfalls, and realizing you are good enough and you belong in whatever room you're in, and you don't have to shrink or dim your light for anybody. You are, as you always, one brother that I can always say has always referred to us as queens. You are a queen. And you need to walk in that and believe that, whether it's physically, whether it's mentally, emotionally, all of that. I have a daughter who is very tall, and I watch her a lot of times, and she's gorgeous. We go places and they say to her, oh, you should be modeling. You're so tall and so pretty. And I was telling a woman in a store that we're in Saturday, I complimented her and said, thank you so much for telling her that, because I watch my daughter shrink when she takes pictures because her friends are so much shorter than she is. And so she's always like, I don't want to be tall. I want to be short. And I'm like, no, you stand tall. You're beautiful and you stand in that. But, you know, we're fighting against what society says and what all these social media people are saying. And so it's a constant struggle. But beyond my bio, it's trying to help her and girls like her understand that you don't have to be afraid and you don't have to shrink from whatever you're trying to succeed in or go after. You be who you are, and who you are is enough.
Nice, nice. Thank you for sharing that.
So beyond the bio for me, really rests in the work that I do in terms of providing professional development to educators. So even though there are educators, many educators of color, when you look at it nationwide, there are pretty few educators of color, and even fewer of us that are that provide professional development. So when I go to provide trainings in Idaho and North Dakota, there are rarely any Black people. And so they're like, oh my goodness, okay, let's see what she knows. And then I think they're actually amazed that, oh, she's bright, she knows what she's talking about. She's entertaining as well. We've learned a lot, and the time went by quickly. And so it really just eliminates a lot of stereotypes across the country. When I do go into mostly major cities where there are a lot of educators of color and I'm doing professional development, they're like, yes, there's somebody that looks like us that is doing this work and she's on it. She knows what she's talking about. And so I think it just really shines a light in, everywhere that I go, that yes, we can do this work. And it even speaks to the educators of color that yes, you can do this work. I shouldn't be the only one out here. And it's pretty difficult for a lot of educators to do this work because you have to attend conferences to stay abreast of everything, and a lot of times, and I started this way too, I had a full-time job and then I had this business on the side. And so I couldn't necessarily get away to attend these conferences and things like that. It's difficult for them, but they can actually do this work and be as successful and, see many places and continue to learn in their craft. And so it's amazing work, but for me, it just really shines a light amongst both whites and others of color that yes, everybody can do this work. And even with the babies, when I go into classrooms and I'm visiting the students and visiting the classes. I remember this one time I was in Colorado. I can't remember the city I was in, but I walked into this kindergarten classroom and there was this one little Black baby in the whole school. And she literally jumped up from the circle time and ran over to me and hugged me around my legs and said, we're the same. And so just letting young children, young girls, everybody just see themselves in me and to help me to let them see that they can do whatever it is that they want to do. So just as Erica said, don't cower, don't be afraid, take risks, and just go out there and try it. There's nothing, you'll be successful at it. So that's pretty much how it is for me.
So I'm gonna stay with you for a minute because you kind of went into you kind of segued into my next question. So if you want to expand a little bit more as to specifically why you started your businesses. I remember years ago, I guess 30 something years ago, whatever, when you were teaching, right? I think I was teaching in North Philly, you were teaching in North Philly, and then you just kind of like, boom. I said, well, what is she's all over the world and doing these different things. I said, Seattle, Idaho, I was like, I don't know if I can go to those kind of places, but just talk about why you started that company.
Well, it was actually kind of a lucky thing. So I was working for an educational publishing company, and they had asked if there were any consultants that were willing to do more work at the state level. And so, so I was actually assigned to work with a couple of districts in Michigan. And so it was like, well, you need to have your own company because you're doing this work outside of regular employee work. And so I set up the LLC to start doing that work. And so I've had the business for 13 years in total. And it was just 6 years ago that I decided to work full time through my business and contract my services out. So that was kind of like an opportunity. And it was like, hey, let's do it. Why not? So I pretty much will jump on any opportunity. Like they say, you might not know how to do it. Take the opportunity and then learn how to do it. And so that's pretty much what I did. So
wow, awesome. Anyone else? Why'd you start your business? Anybody else?
Kind of like what Jacqueline said. Opportunities show up in ways that we may not expect them to. And it was something that I dreamed about doing ever since I was in my early 20s, where I remember taking this course. This is when I was doing my master's degree. And I took this course, and one of the assignments was to create a model for your own business. So I started conceptualizing it ever since then. And I knew somewhere down the line that this was going to happen. I just didn't know when or how or whatever. But, you really have to recognize opportunity when it shows up. And I think a lot of people miss it because they're expecting it to show up a certain way. And a lot of times it doesn't show up the way we're expecting it to. So you have to be able to sit back and recognize it when it does. And when it does, you have to be ready, right? So I'm a strong believer in, opportunity and luck can work if you're prepared for it. If you're not prepared for it, then, oh, well, right? You're going to kind of miss out eventually. Something's not going to work out for you. So once I started it, I started with a small studio, a physical studio where, people were coming in, taking fitness classes and things like that. But I had always imagined myself doing something beyond just the physical. That's what I went to when I decided to go back to school. I went to grad school because I was interested in sports psychology. When I was an undergrad, I had this idea of being a psychologist. But I was turned off from that pretty early on, and from being an educator. But then all the time in the background, I was always involved in some type of activity, whether it was dance, gymnastics, sports, all types of stuff. I was always into that. And when I decided to go back, it was because I realized, wow, there's such a thing as sports psychology. That combines two of my loves, two things that I absolutely love to do. So I went back, and it took me a while because I did it part-time. And while I was putting myself through school, I was working as a group fitness instructor and a personal trainer. And I did that for years. And that's pretty much what helped pay for me to get through grad school for my master's degree. And again, I always had it in the back of my mind somewhere. I just didn't know how it was going to happen because I wasn't born with, people who could actually lead me in those directions. A lot of times I was stepping out, not really having anyone show me the way. I had to figure out a lot of things on my own. First generation college student, then going on to get my master's degree, then going on to get my PhD, then going on to open up a business. All of that stuff I had to kind of figure out. And what really helped was just this firm belief that I had in myself that if I put my mind to it, I can do it. If I stay focused, I can do it, right? If I, one of the things that was instilled in me at a young age was reading. I always read. I was always an avid reader. And if I needed to sit down and read something to figure it out, that's what I did. I sat down and I read something and I figured it out. Well, how do you start a business? Where do you go to get an LLC? Where do you go to get business insurance? What type of lawyer do you need to get a lease on a building for commercial purposes? What do you need to do in order to make sure you have the right certifications for this and certifications for that? So all that stuff, I had to figure it out. And it wasn't easy, you know, it's time consuming, but you just really have to have, I think more than anything, you have to have that personal belief in yourself. And then you have to pay attention to the opportunities and be willing to be coachable, be willing to sit back and listen and learn from people who know what you don't know, and apply it. You know, when it's time to apply it, just step out and do it. And, you know, hopefully things work out. So yeah, that was pretty much my story in terms of how I got into the business. Right now I'm doing more so virtually, you know, we're in this virtual world. And I'm more interested in, like I said before, it was always about the psychological aspect. So it wasn't always just about, you know, push-ups and sit-ups and laps and how much weight you can lift and all of that stuff. All of that is great. But for me, it's a holistic thing. And a lot of times it's more about what's going on up here that you have to address before you can really get to maintaining those physical changes, because there's too many people who will succeed at reaching a goal weight, you know, if they're starving themselves, if they're, you know, aiming to do something for like, you know, a wedding, a prom, a reunion, whatever, but this never really changes or evolves. And until you deal with that, you're gonna be like this, okay? And I also know that because I've lived it. You know, I've lived this, you know, and some of it comes with maturity and learning to break some old habits. You know, a lot of those things we learn as young people growing up, especially athletes. And Damon, I know you can vouch for this, because a lot of times in this, I was eating whatever I wanted to eat because I was in the gym. I was working out all the time. When I turned about 15, 16 years old, and I was no longer, you know, in it working out as much, that weight came on like pow. And I was like, what the hell is this? You know, and I had to figure it out. Like, okay, wait a minute. You mean I can't come home and eat a pot of French fries anymore? What? So, you know, for a lot of athletes, when their careers are over, they're lost, you know, because they're so used to that regimen. They're so used to that showing up for practice at a certain time, game day, you know, everything revolves around it. And when it's over, you have to really figure out who you are as a person without that identity, because now that identity is not necessarily stripped from you, but it no longer consumes as much of your life as it once did. So you got to figure something out. So again, all of that wrapped up for me is kind of like
why
I'm at today. Yeah,
absolutely. And shout out to all of you, because I know all of you are avid runners or weightlifters and people that do yoga and all that kind of stuff. And that mindset you just talked about, listen, I'll be honest with you. Over the past year with the COVID thing, I kind of used COVID as an excuse to eat like Cheez-Its every week and eat all this stuff and whatnot. And now, you know, those who know me, right, I lost a bunch of weight, and then I used COVID as an excuse to put it back on. But I said, you know what? I'm not buying any more new clothes because I lost the weight to get into these clothes. I'm just going to lose this weight again and get my head right? And get my head right and keep my head right. Erica, now we talked a little bit before the show about, you know, some of the things. I would go to these different, like, I would go to concerts, I would see games, and I would see Erica's, you know, like, you know, billboard out here or this place and whatnot, you know. So why did you really start your business? I know you've been doing the business for a long time, but what made you start your business?
So that's an interesting story, because I knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I had no idea what I wanted to do. And in my mind, originally, when I graduated from college, I figured being an entrepreneur for me was going to need to be some type of franchise. I didn't, you know, I wasn't a photographer or Like I had line sisters of mine that were very creative, that, you know, were selling cars or selling t-shirts, and they made businesses out of those things. And I thought to myself, well, I don't really have any of those skills. So I'm going to need to have some type of franchise where they will teach me everything I need to know about this business, and I can then go run with it. And one of your frat brothers, I got hired at State Farm by accident, trying to get an internship as a senior, and ended up with a full-time job. That's a whole nother story for another day. And ended up going into human resources. And as a human resources rep, one of their requirements was that we spend the day with a State Farm agent. And I thought, that's ridiculous. I had been an underwriter. I know what agents do. Like, why do I have to do this? And my manager was like, you have to do it. It's not an option. And Craig Eileen was a State Farm agent at the time. He was a friend of mine. I lived behind him in a house in Delaware. And I said, well, if I'm going to have to do this, I'm going to spend a day with a friend, and I'll just, you know, chill, hang out with him. And I watched Craig that day run his business. And I watched him not sell people insurance, but educate and inform people that look like us through casual conversations. You know, a woman came in to pay her bill, and he said, hey, how you going to pay that bill if you get hurt and can't work tomorrow? And she was like, I don't know. He's like, well, you know, I have a policy, you know, it's another $5 more a month if you want to do it, and it'll take care of this bill if you get hurt. And he sold a health policy that just like that. And I thought to myself, wow, is that what you really do all day? And he was like, yeah, you know, for him, it was about educating people and making them aware of gaps that they had. And I thought to myself, I could do that. State Farm came out with a program called Agency 2000 that made it a franchise-like opportunity. They taught us everything that we needed to know. You had to apply to get into the program. And while you were doing that program, you were doing your full-time job at the same time. So I got into the program. I did that. After 6 months of doing that, then they interview you and select you for the program. I got selected for the program, and then an opportunity presented itself. The whole idea was that they were supposed to set you up with a book of business. So you weren't supposed to start without clients or accounts. But because of where they wanted me to be located in South Philly, they didn't have an agent retiring. So they said to me, you know, this is not supposed to be a part of your deal, but, you know, we can start you, but you'll be scratch. You'll have no clients. And, you know, is it something you're interested in? And I said, absolutely. And I went for it. And so, you know, eventually they were able to give me some accounts. Probably I started in April. I got my first accounts probably in November, but from April to November, we were just hustling. We were just talking to everybody, friends, family. My location was a great location. So I got a lot of walk-in business, but it gave me the opportunity to really put my business together the way that I wanted it to be without having to worry about people that were already calling in that had State Farm that was, hey, I need a new, you know, I need to change my car. I'm complaining about a claim or a bill. I didn't have all those calls. All I had was to find people that wanted to buy insurance. So I had the opportunity to do that. But it was completely, you know, and when I remember the day that I told my mom that I was going to be a State Farm agent, and she looked at me like, what? Like in her mind, I was going to be knocking on people's doors, you know, like the old life insurance people. You're going to be knocking on people's doors trying to sell them insurance. And I'm like, it's not what you think. And I've always run my business, and I still do to this day, that it is our responsibility to make people aware. I'm not selling insurance. I'm making you aware of what your gaps are and how you can fill them. You make the decision about what you want to do about them. But I can always say that at the time you made that decision, it was an informed one. You knew what all of those things meant, and you made a decision about how you wanted to cover them.
You know, ladies and gentlemen out there in Facebook land, Zoom land, if you're not taking notes, right, this is being recorded. You just heard three queens tell three different stories, right? This should be part of someone's curriculum in school. This is why Peace does this. Please educate all children equally, right? We want to make sure the young ladies, the young men, middle-aged people, old people, take this information and learn from it. Take something that you heard tonight and apply it to your life. And if not to yours, to somebody that you're raising, because these are all jewels. They dropping bombs out here tonight, people, dropping bombs. If I had a little icon or something that said drop a bomb, I'll drop that bomb right now. This is awesome and amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom. So the mission and vision of your respective companies, right? You know, everything starts with the mission and the vision. Let's talk to that a little bit. What is your mission and your vision, if you have one stated or just in theory? Anybody who wants to take that? Jack, you want to go with that, Jack?
Yeah, I'll go with that. So I always had, I've always had a motto. My motto is it's all about the students. But I really took some time to think about my mission and my vision. And I actually wrote this information down because it was like, I should have always taken the time to really think about this and jot it down. So I really reflected on it. So I graduated from Clark Atlanta University. Woo woo, go Panthers! And
HBCUs in the house. HBCUs in the house.
and our motto is find a way or make one. And so, like, we live and breathe and die by that motto. And so, when I thought about that, it's basically meeting my motto is find a way or make one to benefit all children at all of their stages of developmental learning so that they can be successful in education. And so the vision comes through helping the educators to be able to do that. So it's really to help the educators on how to provide all of the latest research, all of the latest best practices so that they can be effective in their classroom instruction. Also understanding cultural importance, so the backgrounds from which these children come and being invested in where they come from and understanding that. Also understanding teaching children how to be bidialectal, because that's what we all do. We are all bidialectal in order to be successful in the United States. And so teachers need to know that children have a language that they speak with their families as well as what they speak at school. We need to teach them that and educate them so that they can be successful. So my vision really focuses on the educators so that they can help to meet that mission of giving children everything that they need. And again, circling back to the motto, it's all about the students. So.
Awesome. Nice. Thank you so much. Anybody else? Yeah.
Yeah. So my mission, the way I see it, is really to help people, again, particularly women, live life being them best selves, whatever that may be. And for each of us, it looks a little different. So I really want to try and carve out a space, particularly for women of color, in this field, because a lot of times when you see health coaching, when you see the fitness industry as a whole, it's not geared towards us. So we have to create that space ourselves. So that's what I see myself doing. The broader sense for women, and then in a real niche kind of sense for women of color, who just really want to get to a place in their lives where even with hardship, even with struggle or things that may be going on, that in your heart of hearts, when you lay your head down at night to go to sleep, you know that you did the best that you could with whatever the situation is. And that muscle, that resilience muscle is something that we have to take time to develop, because a lot of times it's not about just what you know, it's about how often you're going to show up and how frequently you're going to show up, even when it's hard. You got to show up. And a lot of times those are the people who become successful, is because they just simply refuse to quit. They kept showing up no matter what. So you gotta learn to show up for yourself. And if that means starting out with, you know what, we're gonna get to those 10 push-ups, but we're also gonna work on this too, right? How do we get from here to here, keeping focused on whatever that goal may be, and not allowing ourselves to be continuously distracted with a lot of the problems or a lot of the struggles that are out there, because they're definitely out there. And I've just seen, for me, when I sit back and I see particularly Black women, the things that we've had to contend with, and we can still show up the way that we do. We are amazing beings, and we really, really have to embrace that. Like, not just say it and like, oh yeah, I'm Black and I'm proud, or I'm a strong Black woman, or whatever, but deep down inside, where you don't even have to say it, it exudes, it comes across without you even having to mutter that word. That's my goal, really. That's my mission, is to really get people to really recognize that power, that inner strength, and just become who you were meant to be, who you are intended to be. Just recognizing that power. And even when it's hard, when you put your head down to sleep, I can check off, I did the best I could. It might still be a mess, but I did the best I could. And I'm going to wake up tomorrow and I'm going to try it again. That's it.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm sorry, Erica.
I mean, our mission is very simple. We help people to recover from the unexpected, and we help them realize their dreams. So, and in the midst of that, as I mentioned before, my goal is, and my mission is that as we do that, it's an informed process. Decisions are made that they are well aware in advance of what those pitfalls are that they may run into, what things are going to be covered and not covered. What does this mean? How does it, what does that look like for me? Not just that I'm looking for the cheapest thing that I can do, but is this really going to be what my family needs? Is my family protected? Are my assets protected? And if my goals are to retire at a certain age or to accumulate a certain amount of wealth, that we can sit down and have those conversations about how can we help you get there. So helping people to realize their dreams.
Awesome. Definitely. Community service, right? We kind of alluded to some of those things, but let's speak specifically to any community service that you're currently doing, aspiring to do, done in the past. Let's talk about that.
Well, I'll go first again. So just very recently, I recorded a couple of storybook readings. So one of my sorors owns a pre-K center in Chester, Pennsylvania, Graham Crackers Daycare. And so usually pre-COVID, I would go out to the center and read to the babies out there, but she asked if we would do some recording. So I actually did a couple of recordings and sent them over to her, and she said that the babies loved them. So that was a lot of fun. But goodness, I've done so many things. Dobbins, my alma mater, Go Mustangs, has.
Go Mustangs. I worked there for 1 year. Shout out Dr. Damon. Shout out Dr. Damon. Good. Shout out Dr. Damon.
That's right. So yes, soror. Yes. So they have a female leadership forum every year. And so I've been a speaker there, just speaking to the young ladies, talking about their options and things like that. During the pandemic, I've donated materials and activities to a couple of families who had pre-K babies, and they were like, what am I going to do with these babies back when we were all on lockdown? So I, took some materials to them so that they could, keep those babies busy. And just very recently, which I'm really proud of doing this. So a parent reached out to me. His son is a senior at a high school here in the Philadelphia area, and his son was ready to drop out of high school. He says that he was a 10th grader. This is basically what his father was saying. He was a 10th grader, and his son said he was ready to drop out. He was done with school. And so I asked him to send any information that he had over to me that I can look at, based on what's going on with him. And as I analyzed his report cards, he's actually in line to graduate this spring. But what happened was they gave him a bunch of credits that had absolutely nothing to do with his, I mean, not credits, classes that had absolutely nothing to do with him getting his diploma. So, some things were messed up, some credits he wasn't given, and it was just really a mess. And so, we had a real sit down with the school and the roster chair and all of that. And I was like, no, he's supposed to get these credits and he needs these classes. Get rid of this baking class and, get rid of this mess and give him his required classes so that he can graduate in the spring. And so they actually worked all of that out. And so now he's due to graduate. And it's just like ridiculous that it just made me think how many children are dealing with that same thing and they don't have, their parents don't understand it and they don't have anybody to reach out to so that they can, get their children in line to where they need to go. So, I mean, I'm really proud of that. But again, that was some community service that I did because I was like, there's no way I can charge this guy for this work. We need to get this baby on track so he can graduate. So
yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome and amazing. I will not talk bad about anybody that works in Philadelphia in terms of who does or didn't do whatever they were supposed to do or whatever. But I have seen that before, and as a former principal here in this area, I've dealt with that and addressed that several times. Even when the parent wasn't around or no one was around to advocate for their child, because it does happen if no one is informed on what that baby should be taken, right?
Exactly. And, it's not that, I'm sure I look at everything as people are trying to have good intentions, and especially roster chairs, they're like bombarded. They have thousands of children that they're trying to set things up for. And so they're trying to make it happen for them. But it's like, no, we need to look at these things. And he was just one of those students that would just have fallen through the cracks. So we definitely, we need to look out for those babies as well. So.
And let me add something to that also. So, and just like for a kid, I have to say this one thing that comes to my mind, it's on my mind right now. If you as a young person or you as a parent know that your child wants to take financial literacy, right? Because they one day want to open a business, right? Or become a realtor or whatever. Tell that school you want that child to take financial literacy. Don't allow schools to just give them double algebra to get ready for some Keystone tests.
Exactly.
I can say that now because I don't work there anymore. So I'm letting you know right now, make sure that your children, if they want to take financial literacy, providing equity, right? Making sure that the school, the high school specifically, is making a plan for your child to make them successful, not just make them pass the test. Yeah, passing the test is important, yes, but also make sure they're taking the classes they need so they can be successful in life. I just had to say that.
Definitely.
Okay.
That's true.
So
very true.
Who'd like to take that next?
I'll answer. I'm going to answer from a different perspective. One of the things I always try to do, from a community service standpoint, is if I can't give my time, I do try to donate money. I'm not rich, but financially, certain donations absolutely do count. Right around the time last year, you're on Facebook. And you know how you get the Facebook memory posts that pop up? And I think it was today, it was either yesterday or today when mine popped up. I put this long thing on Facebook, like, you know what? The schools are shutting down. A lot of kids, college-wise, are being forced to go home. But for a lot of them, home isn't necessarily a secure or a safe space. And it may not be a place where they can count on a meal, because I can remember being, a hungry student, in college and all of that. So the point I'm trying to make is I put a post out there like, look, if you have it, donate to your local food bank, donate money to the local college or whatever, because right now, a lot of college students are food insecure. We don't recognize how serious that problem is, but it really is a serious problem. If you just think back to as being a college student yourself, weren't there those times when you were like, you didn't really have any money, the cafeteria was closed, and that vending machine was there, and you was like, I figure out how to get some of that vending machine. Well, you going through your pockets looking for loose change or whatever. So anyway, I always try to stay active in that. But my service, the way I see it a lot of time, comes back to me just being present and being in spaces that you typically don't see people who look like me. So as someone who is in higher education with a PhD, who is a woman of color, I'm like 1%. So when I show up in those spaces, it's always my goal to make sure that I represent. You know, I know I can't speak for everyone, but a lot of times I know that my presence, the raising of my hand, raising a concern, me presenting at a conference where most people are not talking about race and racism and health disparities and things like that. I'm that person, and that takes on an extra layer of stress and responsibility. And sometimes it gets fatiguing. And that's kind of like what I was experiencing today. And then, you know, just to give you some of what I go through in real life, I had a young student who's an undergrad, she's graduating, young Black female, born and raised, but she was raised in Brooklyn, just like me, public schools, just like me. And she wants to go, I'm not gonna name names, but she wants to go to a school that I'm familiar with because I went there. And although it was 20 years ago, I remember what that was like. And, you know, I'm sitting there grappling with, okay, did I have the right conversation with this young lady to prep her for what she's about to face if she does in fact go here? Because I know the field. If you're talking about in Coach Warren, I want to call you Coach Warren, not Damon and not Smash, but Coach Warren. You know what I'm talking about.
I have
When you're talking about,
I have several names. Coach Warren is fine.
when you're talking about administration, being athletic director, it's a male dominant field, right? And then it gets even more narrow if you're a Black female and you want a leadership position. You want to be a D1 athletic director. Understand, we are such a small 3%. Think of all the thousands of colleges across the country. We make up only 3% of those positions, right? So this young lady, this is what she's aspiring. And I'm like sitting there trying to think of, what do I write in this letter of recommendation? And in the back of my head, I'm also thinking, is she prepared for this? She can do the work. I'm not worried about that. It's all the other stuff, right? It's all the other stuff that goes unsaid, that goes unrecognized, that a lot of times we bear the burden of having to do all of this, plus our job, right? We gotta manage all of that, right? Plus we gotta do our job, and we're expected to show up, right? So I'm thinking about this, and I'm just saying to myself, well, I'm gonna, let the cards fall where they may. Hopefully she and I can maintain some relationship once she goes on to graduate. But my struggle is in not so much whether or not she could do the classwork. It's, is she going to have the support that she's going to need there in order for her to be successful?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people face a lot of these challenges and they end up quitting, they end up dropping out because we don't get that support. We don't get that mentorship. Yeah. We don't get the invite to, my professor or this person who's a researcher or this person who's the head of this department or this, we don't get those invites to the lunch, to the weekend barbecue and things like that. And if we're not getting those, a lot of times we get shut out of those relationships and those opportunities, which is where a lot of that stuff takes place, right? So if they're sitting around talking about stuff and we're like, nope, I don't know that music, I don't know that movie, to, I don't know, name somebody. And they're like, no, we don't know who you're talking about. Well, I don't know who you're talking about. It makes it harder to forge some of those relationships. And a lot of times it's those relationships that help get you to the next level. So you got to figure out how to do that dance. You got to figure out how to make that work. How are you going to show up in this space where as soon as you step into that space, you don't exactly fit in. You don't exactly look like everyone else. You don't speak like everyone else. You don't have the frames of reference of everyone else. And a lot of those people are not going to be able to relate to you either. But you got to figure out some kind of way, because they're not going to work to come to you most of the time. That's not how it's going to happen. You got to figure out how it is you're going to work with them and still be able to rest your mind at the end of the day.
So essentially, your community service is centered in a forever mentor, right? A forever mentor.
Basically, you are.
Yeah.
Yes, forever. And then
Forever
again,
mentor.
just showing up in those spaces
Yeah.
and maintaining myself to a place or to a point where I can still show up and still be healthy for myself.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
True to myself.
Right.
And that takes work. It takes work. It's not an easy thing to do, you know, because people, those microaggressions get really real some days. And some days you just want to, I want to go all the way to the homegirl that grew up in East New York, Brooklyn, and read your behind. But you know what?
You have to have
Smile and I'm gonna be okay.
You have to have some safe spaces to fall back on for that. You definitely have that.
Definitely.
Hey, what you got going on community service wise? Now,
There have been some really great points that are brought up. I want to touch on that whole food insecurity. I have a line sister who actually created a whole foundation surrounding food insecurity for college students, Read Cares. And so I've become very active and involved with her in stocking these food pantries and creating scholarships for these kids that we have no idea are sitting in class and hungry and wondering, where is my next meal going to come from? And this is before COVID. This is before we had a pandemic that was taking over. So I've been very involved in that. For years, my agency, of course, we couldn't this year, but we've every year done a back to school barbecue where we, before school starts, open up our doors, throw some burgers and hot dogs on the grill, and buy a ton of school supplies that we give away to anybody walking down Broad Street that says, hey, my kid, come on in and get a burger. And it's interesting. I've been doing this for probably 15 years. And in the last 2, they opened up a public assistance office in the next block from my office. And the last one that we did, I found it incredible that we were feeding people that were really hungry. It wasn't the people that were just, oh, I'm walking down the street, I want to get a burger, or the guy who works at the Marine Club who's like, oh, y'all got free lunch today. It was people that had been down to that office and said, hey, my benefits haven't kicked on yet. And I heard, that I could get something to eat. I gave a lady a pair of sneakers who, after listening to her story, I was like, hey, sis, I'm a runner. And, if you run, your sneakers still look good, but they're not functional anymore. They hurt your feet when you're running. I'm like, you know what? Take these. I was just going to donate them anyway. I've also been a person who's always tried to, whatever I've struggled through, help people coming behind me deal with that struggle. When I became separated, I struggled with it. So when my church came up with a group that focused on being separated and moving through divorce, I became a facilitator in that program because I wanted to help people walk through that. I got my daughter active involved in a Better Chance program and trying to find a good high school for her. And we struggled getting through the selection process for finding a high school for her. So when we got through it, I then became a parent ambassador and said, hey, I need to help some people because quite honestly, it was some of those parents that got me through getting her to where she was, because there were days that we were just like, this is a wait, like we're never going to get her into a good school. Like this program is hard, and these interviews and all that we had to do in order to get through it. And her test scores, this was a kid that was in an independent school already from pre-K. But when they said she had to take these standardized tests, she was coming in like single digit percentiles. And I'm going, wait, she's bright. She's getting all A's and B's, but these test scores. And then they're saying to me, hey, we don't know if we can send her file out with these horrible test scores. Like, it's not going to look good for her. And I'm, getting discouraged. And then, on the other side of it, now she's in a great school. She's a straight A student. But it then became my responsibility to give encouragement to some of those parents coming behind me to say, hey, test scores are not everything. And your kid is going to be okay. Even if, don't kill yourself, because that's where I was. What do we need to do? What kind of tutor do we need to find? What kind of online program can I get her so that when she has to take this test again, we can get her in some reasonable, we can get some reasonable test scores out of it. And we never got there. But, guess what? She's still doing all right. And she, now we're about to start the college process. And, we're looking at that whole standardized testing again and wondering, but she's still going to be all right. I've always been active and involved with my sorority. So, it's our sorority is a public service sorority. That's what we do, what we've always done. But, how active and involved I am always gets based on what's going on in the business and what's going on, what stage my daughter is in and trying to navigate all the other stuff that goes along with that. So, we, to the points that have already been made, it really is about what we do all day, every day, and making that community service fit into that as well.
Yeah. Awesome work. Listen, we've touched on this a little bit, but let's go a little bit deeper, right? Being a role model for young ladies, and all of you are, and we're putting all this great information out there tonight, but let's speak to that specifically, being a role model for young ladies, obviously with daughters, children and so on and so forth, but how important is that, right? How are you doing that? How have you done that? And how do you think about other people? What should their role be in terms of being that? Because this can't be about what you guys are doing, right? What you ladies are doing, other people as well. Encourage them. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, I'll go first on that one. And it's crucial. We have to, I'm always, my daughter was also a former gymnast, a predominantly white sport. And we were always, moms getting together, like, we got to take care of our brown babies. There are not people out there that look like us and who are doing what we do. So we have to make sure that they see us and that we're aware. And whether that is our children, our friends' children, whether it's making connections. I'm in a really awesome place now of my daughter starting to see that the circles of teaching her all these years, it takes a village to raise a child, is not just a saying. It really is true. Because when she said to me, hey, I think I might want to get my pilot's license. Now, this kid doesn't even have a driver's license yet. And she's saying to me, I want to get a pilot's license. And I was like, oh, you know what? Uncle Leon has a pilot's license. You should talk to him. And she's like, wait, what? Then, or saying, oh, wow, I've got these papers I need, I have to write this paper. And I'm saying, well, Aunt Net, that's what she does. She edits paper. She's a writer. She's written 2 books. You should reach out to her. So I think it then becomes our responsibility to reach out to all of those children, whether they're our babies, whether they're brown babies that we come in contact with, that we see, that we celebrate, even if it's just something as simple as sharing them on social media. I don't know if you guys saw it, but that UCLA gymnast who just did the Janet Jackson floor routine, and Janet Jackson reached out to her, that was a gymnast that my daughter knew from doing gymnastics with her 3 years ago. And I can't tell you the sense of pride that it just gave watching her do interviews and, the excitement that she's feeling. And now I knew her when she was, level 6, level 7. And now she's talking to Janet Jackson about a floor routine. Or the other brown baby that we had that was creating a crossword puzzle and now is on all kinds of, Good Morning America and all these other places. That's, another one that, we knew from my daughter growing up, and her sister being one of my daughter's good friends. So it becomes incumbent upon us like that. That's based on the space that you take up on this earth. You have to pay it back. by mentoring, by reaching back, by adopting all of these kids, whether they're yours or not. I mean, you've done that your whole career, whether it's coaching, teaching, or just the young boy that you see, walking down the street. I always used to get joy out of looking at your Facebook posts and seeing the stories that you tell of, the hip hop music that you're listening to and how you connect that with the young boys now. And they're like, oh, wow, all right, you listen to that? Yeah, listen to that. That's the way that we connect. And then that leads you to being able to have additional conversation, to be a mentor, even if it's only for a minute, that impact is going to have on that child.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Shout out to all the role models out there and all the mentors, all of you. Ladies, anybody else?
Well, for me, I just really truly feel like being a role model is just walking your everyday walk, so I don't really feel like I do anything that is special or anything like that. I just know that whatever I do, I work hard at it. And so for the babies or young ladies that see that, they get that from me. They know that I work hard, and they also know that I enjoy life and I love to laugh a lot. And so they would hopefully see that as well, that not only is it about your work ethic and all of the things that you do in your career, whatever your career path is, but also enjoying life and laughing and just loving those around you. So making sure that they see that, and that's just who I am. So hopefully they see that and they take that along with them. So I just know from one experience in particular, when I was living out in Washington State, my fiance, who is now passed, his children came to live with us. His son and daughter came to live with us. And, I was in my mid-20s raising young children that were not my own, which was fine, but I did not realize the impact that I had on their lives until, later on, his daughter told me, like, oh, I didn't realize I could go to college and she was just saying so many things that she didn't realize that she could do she realized that because she was living with me. She had that experience with me. And so it was like, oh, wow, they are paying attention. They do pay attention. But even then, I wasn't trying to be a role model. It was, I need to take care of these children. So that's just one experience. But with my nieces and nephews, hopefully they see that, work hard, but also enjoy life, love your family, love your friends, really take that time, take risks, as long as it doesn't hurt you or anybody else, enjoy it. But I really don't look at it as, oh, let me make sure I'm doing this because people are watching. It is just be that way. And hopefully people will take from you what it is that they need.
Yeah. Coach Scott, anything you want to add to that about being a mentor and role model for the babies, for the young ladies out there? Or the brothers, or the young men, because you had a whole football team with very long. I tell people all the time, I could have not done the things that I did at Martin Luther King High School at the time without Coach Scott, and they respected you just like they respected me.
That will always be a treasured experience in my life. Always, always, always. I tell them all the time. It's like, y'all stress me out, but
but they love you though. They love you.
I enjoyed it. I really did. I wish I had the opportunity to work with the young ladies at that time.
Yeah, they needed it.
I was more so focused, on the males. Yeah. And I have two sons. I always wanted a little girl, but I was blessed with two boys. So one of the things I try to do when I have the opportunity, a lot of times my interaction with, some direct contact with. And one of the things is to just really share, as much as possible. I am concerned for our young ladies. And one of the reasons why I'm so concerned is because I get them as college students, and the degree of self-esteem issues that are out there is frightening. As a society, we're taught to put on a good face, but so many of our young ladies are really, really struggling with their self-esteem, and they don't necessarily have the community, like, so to speak, like what we have. I'm not sure how old you ladies are, but there's this thing that floats around the internet, like, I grew up in the 70s before it was social media, before there was cell phones. We used to just go outside and play. And, I'm from that generation, but a lot of the kids that we have now who were born, let's just say in 2000 up, just think about some of the stuff that they're exposed to now at a much earlier age. And they don't have that same community, that village, so to speak, because the way things are structured these days, a lot of times, we may have our immediate family members, but, that neighbor down the street who would go and tell your mama what she saw you doing or whatever, for a lot of communities, that no longer exists because people are afraid. Number one, people are afraid to engage in that way, so they just don't. And then it's just the way we move. We don't have that same level, and so I think by the time I get them, they're 20 years old or whatever, and that self-esteem is so fragile that it's frightening. And I think we just have to do a much better job of teaching or just supporting our young ladies. A lot of times the music that we listen to is so misogynistic, and so that they don't know what a conversation. I mean, have you ever, how hard is it to have a conversation with some teens these days? Sometimes you gotta text, because that's how they're used to communicating. And it's like, okay, can we have a conversation? It's like, everything doesn't have to be a social media post or texting or whatever, but to just have face-to-face conversation. And what does that look like? What does that mean? Can you hold a conversation, for 5-10 minutes? That's not about, I don't know, the latest sneaker or whatever. So yeah, I think really just trying to engage as much as possible and trying to have those heart-to-hearts as much as possible. I think really, really important to have with young people, and to really, with young ladies, to reinforce the uniqueness, like you were saying, your daughter, she's shrinking herself because she's tall and she wants to be short or whatever, but really just like, no, trust me, you're good. You're good.
Shout out to all of you and all the things that you're doing. I have to just talk about one thing, and you kind of triggered something in me. When I was coaching at Dobbins for that 1 year, right? I was coaching at Dobbins. I was head coach for that one season. And after the games, my guys would meet the girls after the games. We won a few games, and they would talk to them from the stands. And they'd say, yeah, follow me, so and so on Instagram, right? And that's the way they would like talk to each other. It's like they're not really having like conversations. And they follow these people on Instagram and having like Instagram relationships, and it's just a different thing. But I saw in some cases, the young ladies didn't hold themselves in a higher level of respect, right? The guys just kind of like took advantage of their like athleticism and used that to their prowess. Now I'm not saying that didn't exist for years, right? In different kinds of ways, but it was like no interpersonal real communication, because we're just like this electronic thing, this social media thing. So, you ladies, keep on encouraging your young ladies to make a man respect you, have a real conversation with you, call you on the phone, date you, all that kind of stuff, right?
I want to share something.
Just go ahead, please.
Yeah, I think Yeah, I want to share something, and I don't know if we have any of our cougars online here, but I'm gonna share something because this always stuck out to me. And Brandon,
My son,
yes,
okay,
he was a part of this, and I'm so proud of that young man. But I
he's
always
doing amazing things.
said,
Shout out to
um,
shout out to Chef Brandon out there, Chef Brandon.
yes, this was back at King, and trying to address exactly what you're talking about. I said to the guys, I said, okay, guys, this is what we're going to do. You're going to put together a meal and a nice layout for the ladies. You're going to support the ladies today because the ladies who are your cheerleaders, who are always out there, your team managers and all that, doing that stuff for you, we're going to flip it and we're going to do something nice for them. So they got into it, right? We had little gift bags. We got permission from, I don't remember whom, but we got permission to use one of the home ec rooms that had the stove and the oven and the dishes and all of that. And so I had them put tablecloths, set the table, light some candles. They did some cooking. Brandon was like the head chef. And the girls, I went out, I invited one of my other colleagues to come and do like a workshop with the ladies. And they had some discussion. And afterwards, we were like, okay, you're going to get a treat. And the ladies, they were all like, man, they probably going to do something to us. They were like expecting the negative.
Right,
But I just kept quiet and I'm listening. When they walked into that classroom and they saw how the guys had set it up for them, they were floored. They were like, and it was like, this is more how, you should become accustomed to exchanging and engaging with one another. So they were really good. They served the food and they gave them the gift bags and they talked about it for days. And here, years later, we got Chef Brandon.
Real doing big things.
Really doing his thing.
Big things in Tennessee.
But
yes.
It's things like that, that I think, teaching and demonstrating how to engage with one another, because I get taken aback when I turn on the radio and I listen to some of the songs. Like a lot of times, I get the radio version, but when I hear the edited version, I'm like, oh my God. What are they saying? And this is what kids are growing up listening to, and this is how they dialogue with each other. And I'm like, you know what? We got to learn to be a little bit more gentle and softer and kinder, and the way we speak and engage and set that standard.
Yeah.
And
there was things out there even when I was a kid growing up. The difference now is social media being the game changer, right? I mean, that's a whole nother show talking about one particular song with 3 letters. I won't bring it up. I won't get into that tonight because different people have different, empowerment things. I don't want to start. I don't want no smoke. I don't want any smoke, ladies. I don't want any smoke. I know people feel differently, but we can do it. I'm not having that conversation, but I'm just saying though, right? Being able to have that space and the intelligence to then still teach your daughter who can just pop that thing on YouTube at 12 or 13 years old because I saw that happen when a young lady who, I know personally, who was able to tell me about it. And I was like, what? And I told her mom and I was like, oh no, we need to we got to have a whole sit down. Let's have a sit down and talk about this because, but we had stuff back in the day too, but it was different. Like I said, social media. There was no YouTube back in the day to find all this stuff. So another conversation, another show, but thank you for all that you're doing as far as being mentors and role modeling for these young ladies.
And I just wanted to add to that, like we did have our music back in those days as well. So we had that, but like you said, it wasn't, we kind of had to listen to that on the side. Like we couldn't, our parents weren't listening to it with us. Like, yeah, that's my jam, so it's a little bit different.
Right.
That's one thing.
Right.
The second thing is, I think developmentally, girls, especially in those teenage years, go through that self-esteem period, that lack of self-esteem, and they need to be around those people who continually build them up because just, in those teenage years, you're not thinking that you're the bomb.com. You really aren't as a teenage girl. You're really not feeling that good about yourself. luckily, you know, Delta, our sorority has Delta Gym and Delta Academy to put girls in those situations where they can learn and grow from each other, as well as role models that, you know, can help to build their self-esteem. So I think that's really something that we have to recognize, is that as teenage girls, you go through that struggle. Like, I'm just not cute. No boy is going to like me. And to the point where you might say, well, what do I need to do to get him to like me? Which may not be the best thing. So
Right.
having those mentors around you to continually build you up and to give you that guidance, that way to go, is really, really important. I just wanted to add that in there. Not talking about the 3-letter song.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So your legacy. So in short, what would you like your legacy to be? What would you like to be known for, you know, your legacy? Your living legacies are amazing, but, you know, what's going to be your footprint? What's going to be your legacy? What would you like it to be?
Well, I just want my family to just say she was the coolest auntie, the best sister, you know. Insofar as my family, I just want them to feel like when I leave here that they felt loved by me. That's the most important thing. Insofar as with work, just definitely making sure that, hoping that people felt like I gave my all to the work that I've done, to helping children and helping educators. Those are basically the 2 things that I would love to leave as a lasting legacy.
Okay.
I'll go. You know, this is something I've spent some time thinking about, and I am thinking about, you know, what can I do, because I do want to leave something behind. Definitely for my children, because the way I look at it is, for me to work as hard as I have, and for me to get to the places that I have, my dream is that my children won't have to go through as much struggle, that they will have certain things in place where, you know, not necessarily an easy life, but just not as hard, you know, so a little differently than, you know, what I had. And the other thing I think about is, from a legacy perspective, and I'm trying to decide, like, okay, which one do I choose? But it doesn't take a whole lot of money to leave. I can't think of the term of what it is right now, but when you leave something for a college and they can give a scholarship every year in your name.
Endowment?
I'm actually,
like an endowment, right?
it is something like that. And it doesn't cost, you know, I'm not rich, so it's not going to be a whole bunch of money. But I know when I was coming up, when I got that little $250, $500 extra semester, it made a difference for me. You know, now it may need to be a little bit more than that, but to do something like that, it doesn't take a whole lot of money. So I'm actually exploring a way to do that, and then setting up something to help, whether it's, I'm still trying to figure out if it's first generation student or someone who's going on to a graduate degree, because there are quite a few things out there for undergrads. But then once you get to that graduate level and you want to pursue something further, it can be really tough. And one of the things that, you know, for the Black community that hurts many of us, for those of us who have gotten a higher education, is the amount of student loan debt that we've acquired in trying to do that. So, you know, I would encourage people to think about, what can you leave behind that will help that student who wants to go to the next level as well, whether, you know, in grad school, whether it's for a master's degree or, you know, some type of advanced program. And, you know, can you set up something? And it might be something as simple as leaving, you know, you set it up in such a way where it sits, it collects interest, and whatever interest is collecting, that's what they give out every single year. And it doesn't take a whole bunch of money to do that. So that's kind of like where my thinking is right now, in terms of, what do I want to leave, you know, what I want my legacy to be, what do I want to leave behind? You know, because for a lot of times I was the first, or I was the only. And I want somebody else's path to be a little smoother, you know.
Absolutely.
They could take it a little further, hopefully.
Absolutely. Erica, you live in that space. This is what you kind of do. So, talk about it.
I mean, great point. I had a line sister of mine that passed from breast cancer, and we did set up, we collected money, and we now have a scholarship that we give money, and that's exactly what it is an endowment. So the money that was donated was invested, and we give a scholarship based on the interest that is provided each year. So, and we chose a student that had interests similar to hers, in memory of her. I am in conversation with actually somebody at Cheney alumni about doing life insurance policies that will serve as an endowment, making the beneficiary on a life insurance policy, the Alumni Association, so that you're paying into it, monthly, annually, whatever. But when you pass away, that lump sum then is given to your organization that you love, that you got so much out of. And now this is a way to give back to the students that are there. And then, back to your original question, Jackie made a great point. What I hope it is able to be said about me when I am gone is that I'm missed, that the people who I touched will feel a void when I'm no longer there. I like to consider myself a caretaker. So I take care of people. I'm a giver. So I give to a lot of people, whether it's time, whether it's advice, whether it's, money, whatever it is. I try to give of myself, and I hope that when I'm gone, that will be, people will be able to say that about me and say, hey, I really missed it now. She's not here anymore. And I also hope that, again, there will be a legacy of professionally, that there were people that learned from me along the way, that there will be people that say, wow, she was a really, she was a good role model, that even if when I was doing it, I didn't realize it. I think, it was mentioned earlier that we're being watched, even when we don't realize we're being watched. We're having an impact. Jackie even saying, walking into a room and a girl just gets excited just because it's somebody that looks like me. That's, I think, one of the big things that made Michelle Obama so popular, even before she got the chance to really show us how phenomenal she was. It was just looking like, wow, there's a Black woman and she looks like me. She's got hips like me. She's, got hair like mine. And I turn on the TV and one day her hair is straight and one day her hair is curly. And so like, it wasn't this plastic Barbie doll type of person in that role. And I hope that I'm able to be that for somebody else, that when I show up, somebody else is taking notice saying, wow, I liked watching how she did this or she did that, or how she maneuvered this and maneuvered that. And I hope that I'm able to, that somebody is able to say that I made a difference in their life.
Ladies and gentlemen out there tonight, you have just seen and witnessed the three amazing queens. Again, I have to keep on stressing this point. Dropping bombs, dropping jewels, dropping gems, talking about their legacies and their living legacies right now. I mean, they're just awesome and amazing. So we're going to wrap it up in a couple of minutes, but I want you to talk about yourselves in terms of any particular projects you got going on, any special promotions, business, what you got coming up next, for your business, or just anything you want to share at this point in time.
So one of the things that I'm hoping, I'm waiting for notification, but I'm hoping this grant comes through, because I wrote it up to serve women virtually from a virtual health coaching standpoint, because one of the things that we know with COVID is that women were impacted more than men, in a sense of having to, if they have children, to have to stay home with the children and working from home. If they were able to keep a job, a lot of the jobs that women have as essential workers. They had to work through all of this, and just a lot of stress. So one of the things that I know is that not everybody can afford or may not have the physical space or the ability to go out and get the exercise or whatever. So what I'm trying to do is create something where they can do it from home, and I'm able to coach them while they're home, and hopefully provide them with these tools, and they get like a scholarship for it. So I'm hoping that comes through. You never know, but even if it doesn't, I've already started thinking about ways to crowdfund for it. So if you see me out there in another month or two asking for money through crowdfunding donations, you know what it's about.
Say less, say less, say less, say less.
And the other thing is, I'm still doing my virtual workouts from home. So you can check me out at fusionfitandwell.com. I'm sorry, Facebook, Fusion Fit and Well. That's my page. My group is Dr. Scott's Health and Wellness Corner. And my website is fusionwellnessnow.com. I have a podcast, Dr. Scott's Health and Wellness Corner, again, is my podcast. And I'm just looking to reach out and get people who may not feel like they have a place in that space, that I'm here and you do have a place. You just got to join in and get the information. But virtual classes, health coaching, that type of stuff. I'm available to do small group type stuff. You want to get your girls together or something like that, we can do all of that. So.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Jack?
Well, I'll go. So I'm currently engrossed in a project with Southern University of New Orleans. They are opening an early childhood lab school. And what their goal is, and they received a grant for this, is to kind of create this state-of-the-art pre-K center for 3s and 4s. And it's going to be a lab school so that their students who are early childhood education majors can also go there for training and student teaching and understanding the pedagogy of young children, all of those kinds of things. And so my task is to develop a strategic plan for them that they will follow in order to get their school set up. So I'm not looking at all of the aspects. I'm mainly focused on their curriculum, their assessments, their classroom environment. So those are the things that I'm mainly focused on. So I'm really engrossed in that, which is great work. I'm loving it. So, pre-K, my heart is with the pre-K babies, even though I work with children at all grade levels. And, I'm available for professional development. I'm available for child advocacy services to help families with their children, caregivers with their students as it relates to IEPs and 504 plans. I've worked with families to support in that regard. I also work with, or will come out and provide, well, not necessarily come out right now, but you know what I mean, work with community organizations. There's a community organization that I worked with in training them about advocacy, so that they took those tools back to the families in their community, the Cheltenham African American Alliance, I think I said it correctly. But just so I'm available to do that work as well. So anything dealing with children, just look me up, edmondeducational.com. And I'm also on Facebook, so you can look me up on Facebook, Edmond Educational as well. So that's
awesome. And I have a vision for both of you before I let you go, Erica. A vision for both of you too. My soror is here because the Bayou Classic, Southern, right? I know State Farm State Farm used to be like a sponsor. Maybe we should get back in there and do something where the babies from your program run out at halftime. And guess what? I'm going to be down there because I go down there every other year. So the next one that happens, now that you be down there doing something, right? We get those babies from Southern and the State Farm division sponsors them and get a profit. I'm just saying.
Listen, anything to get to New Orleans.
Say less, for real. So I am in the process of rebuilding my team for my insurance agency. So I have added a Spanish speaking person. I now have a Portuguese speaking person. So we're rebuilding that. I'm in the process of studying for an additional license, which will allow me to not only, I mean, I've always done financial products. I'm 6 and 63 licensed, so I can do mutual funds. I do life insurance, financial products, but this next license will also allow me to charge for investment advice. So I start my class tomorrow for that. And I'm also in the process of trying to also expand into other areas. So I have developed a love for real estate. So I'm starting to pursue some additional properties that way. And also thinking about what my next business is going to look like. Have become very active and involved in physical fitness and working out. So I've also started to look at some additional franchises that, you know, might get involved in that and be even more of a passion for me. So I'm looking at what do the next 10 years look like for me after having spent 24 years in insurance. So, but you know, the insurance game is still there and strong. I am loving helping my clients with their family. It's amazing the amount of people that are calling. You know, we spend a lot of time trying to talk people into life insurance. Now I'm having people that are now starting, those seeds are being, you know, are now starting to sprout because people are now realizing with COVID, like, hey, I need to get my financial affairs in order. I need to talk to you about some life insurance. You've been trying to talk to me about it for like the past 10 years and I wouldn't listen. But now I'm feeling like I need to do something. So that's been good in our office of helping families make sure that their families are taken care of if something were to happen. But you can reach me. I'm at ebmsf.com is my website. Facebook is everything is Erica Bantam Martin. So the Facebook, my Instagram, on all of the Google webs and interwebs is all ericabantammartin.com under State Farm.
Ladies, listen, also, one last thing. So, right, the intersectionality of all your 3 different types of work. Talked about fit and fusion here. We talked about you wanting to spread out, and then, you know, those partnerships, please, you know, stay in contact, you know, because you can do it here, you can do it in New York, you can do it wherever, do it in Louisiana. Like the triangulation of all 3 of you in your careers, in your amazing queendoms, is just going to be outstanding for the babies out there, for the people out there, for yourselves to continue this work of giving back, because you're actually, you know, you're working, you're living in your purpose, but you're giving back to the community. Everything that you just mentioned tonight, you're working, being well compensated for those things. So shout out for that, but also giving back. And that's what everything needs to be like, especially within our community, and being that role model for our babies out there, especially our young ladies of color. They need you. We need you. So thank you. Thank you for coming on tonight. And everybody out there in Facebook land, Zoom, ladies, don't go anywhere yet. Everybody there in Facebook land, Zoom land, thank you for chiming in tonight, checking us out, right? Education Liberation Fridays, Women's Business. This particular edition was amazing. And if I have to say, I love all the shows that I do, but you know, like the verses series that is out there, one of my favorite verses was Erykah Badu, right? Versus Jill Scott. This right here is my Erykah Badu versus Jill Scott, and not versus per se, but this is that for me tonight. So shout out to all of my lovely queens out there. Shout out to everybody out there in the world. Listen, share this on your pages to all the babies. Also, next month for Poetry Month, I'm going to have a very, very special guest. I won't say his name yet, but when I put it out there, you definitely don't want to miss that. a very, very historic and talented, gifted poet. You're going to be on show with me next month. So shout out to all you out there. Thank you for coming out. God bless you and good night.